Right.
Welcome to Kiki's Chat Show. Today is the 13th of January. So this is my second show. This is the second week in January. And last week was a bit fraught with all sorts of things. But this week, we're not going to dwell too much on the fraughtness of what happened live just before my show, which really bothered us. But we will talk about it in a more academic way about how that affected us. I do not want to waste too much time. I don't even have a thought for the week, but I think that's okay. I will rather introduce my guest. My guest today is Stephen Nyako. He is a UK-based historian. He's an investigative journalist and lately a property professional social activist. What's a social activist?
Activist. Social activist. You know what Obama used to do before he went to the White House?
Wow. So you're kind of ready and politically poised. Is that it?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, good. Now, I don't know. I mean, without much ado, we are going to start talking because it's quite a heavy remit. The topic today is African diasporan issues, of which we're talking about. Are we really making positive strides, and should we continue this sojourn? A lot of Africans are in all countries in the West. I mean, the West invaded us, and they made us think that whatever was theirs was good, and everything that was ours was bad. So they took a lot of things from us. Plunder and pillage is the way some people describe it. And therefore, we have followed our things, our gold, our bauxite, our iron ore, our diamonds, our cobalt. It's just endless. I mean, this is what, that all of the things they took. They even took some of our intellectuals. They took people who knew a lot of things and used them. They took our carpenters, our draftsmen. They took humans who were professionals in whatever they were doing. So, welcome to my show, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Let me wish you a happy new year.
Happy New Year to you.
And because of the way 2020 obviously negatively impacted on us, 2021 surely going to be a better year. So wish you a happy new year. And I know that, I mean, you are a Krobo chick, so I will wish you Okliboni as well. And for the blessing from the ancestors.
And the ancestors also accept this greeting. Yeah. Now, my first question to you, so that we don't waste too much time within the hour, is: are we making strides in the Western world?
Yes, obviously you've spoken about the diaspora, which obviously is a worldwide community of various people, mostly of African heritage. We've been surviving in the Western world, which is in Europe, in UK, US, Brazil, the Caribbean, basically everywhere you can find the African diaspora. And we've been contributing a lot towards the development of these areas that we and our offsprings and our children reside. But lately, obviously, we got this COVID-19 pandemic, which has impacted on our communities across the world relatively severely. When the COVID pandemic obviously started, it started in China, apparently, before it got to the various areas where we reside. And then the evidence later became clear that the likelihood of testing positive and dying disproportionately impacts on us, African people and people of African heritage. This has created a very, very difficult social, financial, economic, and health situation for most of us. I can speak of the UK, where I reside. Initially, there were a lot of fatalities, and the Black and ethnic minorities were disproportionately impacted. And as you know, we work in sectors of the economy or professions where, I mean, we initially did not understand why our people were such victims. But obviously they are.
Do you, yeah, I mean, you're just running away with the whole discussion, but I'm sure people want to ask you questions and they want to actually see, they want to ask you a few questions on what you're saying. So if you kind of keep rattling on, we will lose the whole plot.
Yeah, fair enough.
The question is that you've talked about the virus, the COVID virus, and you've talked about how it has affected us disproportionately. What do you mean by disproportionately? Are you suggesting that more of us are dying, or what? And if we are, how? That is the question.
Well, some research was carried out, especially in the UK and in other countries as well. Initially, the number of people who were dying relative to their population within the country was evident that our people, basically people of African heritage and African background, were dying. Like, for example, they were overrepresented in public transport, in the NHS, in other sectors of the economy where they were put on the front line without any safety mechanisms to ensure they are
PPI.
Because you got a lot of African nurses or people of African heritage or Caribbean working in the NHS, and they were not safeguarded, basically. And there were doctors from ethnic minority backgrounds who were also not safeguarded. There was lack of PPI, as you mentioned, and they normally work on the front line, and therefore, obviously, they get these impacted quite quickly, more than the other counterparts. So, for example, if you take transportation, I mean, the London Underground, the London Transport buses, and some of the operatives, obviously, initially were really, really severely impacted. So this is what I meant when I say they were exposed to the COVID pandemic, and a lot of them did sadly pass away.
Is it the same now, though? I mean, are people still dying now, or would you say that a lot of the frontline workers are now off sick and at home or being careful, or now they have PPIs or whatever it is, coverings, and therefore they're not so affected as they were in the beginning?
Well, things have improved relatively because, the impact of the COVID was felt severely in February, March, April. And obviously, by the time the government woke up and started doing the right thing, and obviously taking into context the fact that our people are much more exposed and therefore they needed much more protection, by the time they realized, a lot of people had passed. But as of now, in 2021, definitely there have been a lot of improvement. Now they have all their kids, and they are trying their best as well to safeguard everybody. And obviously, prior to today, when issues like discrimination and unequal treatment and impacted on our people, now I think the playing field, there's a level playing ground, and a lot more resources have been committed to the fight against this disease. And obviously, we now have the vaccine. And the vaccine has been approved, it's been rolled out, and obviously a lot of people, the plan is to vaccinate everybody and make sure that they are protected. However, there is anecdotal evidence that people of African and Caribbean or African diaspora are a bit reluctant. The reason why they are reluctant is another issue we need to look at, because obviously it looks like there are trust issues there, because you can see on social media some of these what I call content where people are, especially of our background, are a bit apprehensive.
But why? Of course, we will be. And let me tell you. Let me remind you that in history, Black people have been used for experiments unbeknown to themselves. Indians have been given blankets full of smallpox, which killed them in vast areas. Black people have been injected with injections containing syphilis, all sorts of things. Now, this is not to say that we have had polio, all sorts of other illnesses. There've been injections for it, inoculations, etc., which has eradicated a lot of illnesses and diseases. But why is it that we've had even the mumps, rubella, all of this has happened and gone, and yet with this particular thing where people are actually dying, and we can see them dying day in and day out, people are still nervous and mistrusting about this particular vaccine?
Yes, I think a lot of people obviously are thinking, how come this vaccine the research has been done, and the tests and the trials have been done, and it's been approved within a matter of a few months. I think sometimes, people have these issues because of past history, as you mentioned, and you remember when they introduced the polio vaccine, some people said, "Oh well, there are issues of an agenda of depopulation, and especially targeted as Africans or people of African origin." And there were a lot of rumors. Obviously, these things were never proven. But now with this vaccine, this is my opinion. It's been sort of implemented, or the research has been done, the trials have been done, and the necessary permissions have been obtained within a few months, just because a lot of governments threw a lot of money at the project. Because with vaccines or any other medical project or program, you need money, you need funds to advance it. But I think the amount of monies that have been poured into this project, obviously, is the main reason why this has been very, very quick. So maybe we shouldn't be too suspicious and go for the vaccine. The Prime Minister has had it. The ministers of state have had it. Even the royal family has had it. So I
Well,
think this.
I mean, are you sure? Were you there? Have you seen the real family
Well,
or any member of the family having it? There is this point that a listener has made, which is that Black women are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. And that
right.
this is a very good reason to be mistrustful. Now, 5 times more likely is a lot. And, just recently, I know somebody who died, not in childbirth, but in her pregnancy. She had eclampsia and all sorts of things. And then she kept complaining about pain in parts of her body and all of this, but she still died. The midwife didn't do very much about it, allegedly, and all of this is alleged, but she died. And there was a funeral, I know that, and all of that. So, these are the issues. We all, in the Western world, you would think that medicine has advanced so much that people would be safe here. Leaders of countries in Africa, they have a cough and they hop on a private jet or something and come up here, and we are here. So why are we feeling compromised? Is it that racism is part of the reason why we are mistrusting? That is more the question.
That is true. If you look at the history of the development of vaccines, it's been associated with a lot of suspicion, especially from our side. However, I think the reassuring thing is the World Health Organization is in charge of all this.
And that is reassuring. That is reassuring.
No, it's a United Nations body, and I think it works in the interest of all human beings. Therefore, some of the top scientists and officials in this organization are handpicked from all over the world, professionals, specialists, and they are supervising and they are superintending over policies, over development of vaccines, medication, and issues like that. So I think that should really give us some reassurance, because the pandemic is serious and the trials have been done. Yes, you could say that there were some people who were a bit concerned about the trials because they claim, some of us with African heritage, we got different genetics. How much trials were carried out on people of our kind? Where is the data? Can we have a look? Where can we find the data so that we can make an informed decision? Yes, these are legitimate questions, but because the pandemic is so serious, I think we should try and sort of take heart that we put our faith in the WHO and accept especially for our vulnerable ones, like our elderly mothers and our vulnerable relatives with underlying health issues. For them, it's a matter of life and death.
Okay.
Therefore, I think
a listener is saying, does anyone else find it strange that no vaccination exists to date against viruses such as HIV, the common cold, or even a cure for cancer, but a vaccination has been developed in record time against a virus which appears to be mutating? So mutating means it is replicating itself at the rate of knots. And even if you knew it as John, it is now Jason Bourne or something. In that way, is this vaccination going to work? Or does that mean that we will have to be vaccinated every 6 months or every year or something? What is going on?
Well, without the vaccination, I think we cannot begin to recover. Mind you, economically and financially, it's been devastating. Everything seemed to have
Yeah, we'll
come
talk
to a
about that. No, we will talk about that. We'll move on to the finance in a minute. But what I'm saying is people are concerned about that. So if this is mutating, you may not have answers for it. I definitely don't have answers for it. But because you're a journalist, maybe I thought you would have a little bit of a hang on it so that we'll know what to say. But vaccines are important. It is true. I can say that because we've all been vaccinated for different things, and different illnesses have appeared and then vanished purely because people were vaccinated, etc., etc. But this is an illness that is totally baffling, and so we're going to hold that thought. We're going to hold that thought and come back to the illness part. Now, regarding the COVID, a lot of people in the Western world, you know, the diasporan, is here as well. The majority of the diasporans are the ones who are doing the cleaning jobs or etc., etc. We do have diasporans who are lawyers and doctors and all of that, but even they feel the racism. They are affected by things that are going on around them. What do you think is happening regarding the situation happening to these people? Everybody who's in work now, who may not be physically working because of what's happening, if you have whatever jobs that you're doing, there are some people who are working like the doctors, etc., but there are lots of people at home. There's swathes of people who, even the cleaning jobs, the offices are not open these days, so they don't go to work. What do you think is happening to their state of mind? What do you think is happening to them? Do you think this fellow is working, etc.? Tell me something.
Right. Yeah, obviously. I mean, you can't blame people for being concerned, being apprehensive, being anxious. These are not normal times. However, let's follow the evidence. At the end of the day, the evidence is what is important. The scientists are doing their research. They are collecting data. And obviously, we live in different times. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of information floating about. Social media have made it very easy for people to create their own news content and to spread rumor but obviously, let's follow the evidence. The evidence suggests that the vaccine being deployed now is the only solution. So if you are anxious and as a result of that, you are reluctant to be vaccinated, that is your choice. I don't think the government is going to force anyone. By the end of the day,
we've moved on from the vaccine, and now we're talking about people in jobs that are not actually functioning. And we're talking about the African. What do they do? What is their train of thought? Have you spoken to people? Do you know what people are thinking at the moment? What is it that they want to do now? And this fellow, is it working? Are people managing to pay their bills? That sort of
thing. Okay. All right. Well, it's very difficult, and that's part of the economic issues that we also need to look at. For example, the magnitude of the recession caused by the outbreak is unprecedented. The government have made sure to put in place certain measures, which are welcome, but this is only for the short term. I mean, people are thinking, oh, what would I do in the medium term when this furlough scheme comes to an end? So these are all anxieties. I mean, it's something that we all need to think about and find solutions to. But at the moment, we need to make sure that we get back quickly to economic recovery, because that's the only way Jobs are going to be created.
How do
Investment is going to be made.
How do we
and
get
stuff
back
like that?
How do we get back to economic recovery when the illness is lurking outside our doors? We are supposed to be indoors now. And it may even get worse because they keep saying the beds are full, the hospitals are full, you shouldn't come near the hospital, etc., etc. So if that is the case, how can you be going to work when the hospitals are full and all of that? And that's where, look, I mean, where I'm going with this question is, does that mean that people should start seriously thinking about going back to Africa where the illness is not established there? Because it seems like the numbers are more here than over there.
Right. It's not easy in Africa either. Well, there is an option there, but it's not easy over there because, as you may realize, a lot of African countries, from west to east, south, have also had the economy shut down because they can't do business and they are not able to trade with the rest of the world. The governments are in serious trouble. They can't borrow even to develop as they used to. So although the disease is not as prevalent on the continent as it is in Europe, is that really an option? The diaspora in Europe contributes a lot towards the development of the African continent, as you are aware. And people send money back home. People, they contribute towards their family's education and stuff like that. Now, they haven't got the money now because people have lost their jobs. They are not in employment anymore. So if you go back to Africa, well, I mean, how you go? There are people who have already moved back to Africa, those who have retired, there are people who have worked in the diaspora, they decide they want to settle home, they live there half of the year and come back to Europe or the US. Those ones, they can manage because a lot of them are probably on pension, they are getting their pension. Some have got a windfall after selling their properties and stuff like that. But if you are coming from, you are part of the diaspora working, earning an income, I don't think you'll be able to go back to Africa to survive. It will be very, very difficult because the people you are going to be living with were depending on you. So, I mean, how are you going to work that out?
But we need to go and rebuild. That's the whole idea. I mean, we can't sit here and be working and being maltreated, maligned, misunderstood, etc., knowing very well that we have a continent that needs all of our, everything that we've learned and everything that we are giving here, we could give there. I mean, I know somebody who was working here and has gone to become a farmer and is doing really well, fish farming. There are people who are doing all sorts of things. So if you say in a blanket way that, well, it's hard in Africa and that Africa is your home, though.
Yes, that is true. There are a lot of people who obviously go back to Africa on a regular basis. There are people who've got investments there. People are building houses. People are building businesses. People have got projects ongoing. But all these things requires money, finance, funds. And if you are not able to sort of earn that money anymore or access the loans and whatever that you use to start these projects, I mean, how is it going to help you? I don't think so. I think what we need to do is to stick it up here, try and get vaccinated as our contribution towards the economic recovery. And then, I mean, when things get back to normal, we all obviously will be back to our normal selves, and we will
No, but
we
you
contributed a lot.
If this discussion is whether it is wise to be here while all of this is going on, this whole country is shut down. The country is shut down. Now, if you go to Africa, it is not shut down, and yet, yes, a few people the COVID is there because the West took it there, but life is still going on. It is not shut down. Now, there are things that we could do to rebuild. We're always complaining and we're always saying about how things are not working. Well, if you've learned how to make things work, why don't people be helped to go back and do whatever it is that they can do to keep Africa churning, and maybe we will all go.
Yes, obviously, ideally, you are talking in an ideal situation, probably. No, but the thing is, in Africa, most countries are struggling. The economy of most countries have really is on a downward slide, because, mind you, in Africa, most countries deal in commodities. Okay, that's how the government makes money to invest in the economy. Now, most of the commodities markets have shut down. It's either shut down or they are trading on a very, very limited basis. If you take all the commodities, agricultural commodities, take iron ore, take bauxite, take even take cocoa, and take all the other commodities, they're not trading anymore as how they used to do before. So there's no money in the system. The Europeans and the multilateral organizations, the IMF and the World Bank, who used to support us, are not able to do that anymore until this whole situation is over. Okay. So if you're saying we should go back,
I'm not saying we should go back, but I'm saying here we are in a country where we are maligned, maltreated, misunderstood, etc., etc. Now, all of these things are happening, and it looks like the countries are just falling apart. We've got Africa. Africa is really very fertile and good, and everything that comes out of Africa is coming out of Africa at a cheap rate to come and rebuild things and create things, build trains, infrastructure, everything that is done here. All of the things came from, even the mobile phone that you're holding, that you're using for this interview, because I know you're using your phone, the cobalt in it is coming from Africa. Therefore, if we have all of these things, and we have Africans who are working in these areas, we have Africans who are in mobile phone factories, mobile phone shops and everything, have we not learned enough to move? That is the thing. Should we be doing this? Because if you are giving the negative side of, well, it's difficult in Africa, and no, they're not buying. We don't want to sell the iron ore. We don't want to give it anymore. We will build our train with it. That's what I want us to do.
Yes, ideally we should be keeping it. We should be adding value to it before we sell to outsiders. But I think we have realized now that the old ways of doing things is not acceptable anymore. That is why they have set up the African Continental Trade Organization to facilitate trading between African countries. And I think this is one of the key initiatives that will address the situation you're mentioning now. So we are not there yet, but at least we've started the journey. We just hope and pray that we sustain it and we get to the promised land.
So what have you got to say about the hospitality industry then? Because here, a lot of Africans, and my concern for this particular show, the whole discussion is about how the COVID or our lives at the moment, what is happening to us, etc. Now, in the hospitality area, we have hotel people who work in even chambermaids, bellhops, the chefs in the hotels, the restaurants, taxis, airport carriers, the lot, bus drivers, all of these people are there. Now, car hire, everything. Now, all of these people are being furloughed. They have no jobs. They're at home. Now, it looks like fun for a child if they say, oh, don't go to school, stay at home, don't go. But it is not fun for somebody who's got a mortgage or rent to pay or the food to produce for the children. Or in all this, is it not striking people that this is the time for us to start thinking about movement? We need a Moses, it looks like.
Yes, you're right. I mean, obviously, as you know, a lot of Africans in the diaspora are much more represented in that sector: hotels, tourism, public houses, restaurants, and stuff like that. And most of these things most of these industries or service sectors are the ones which are normally shut down first, because that is where people congregate normally. There are a lot of people who go to
what. Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm asking you. If you're saying, for example, that, well, it's hard in Africa, look, I don't think people should go to Africa and go and look for a hotel to work in. I think people should start going to build their own hotels and find people, locals, to come and work for them. People have been in jobs for a long time. We have Africans, and these are my things that I think about sometimes. We have Africans who maybe are very educated, but they did not do any of their education in the Western world. And they come here without, valid papers, and they struggle to get to where they want to be and all that. So then they end up being a taxi driver, at this, at that, and all of that. If things are not working, what is the option? That's my question.
Well, I mean, obviously, everyone's circumstances is different, but the main issue, the underlying issue is if you are, finding it very difficult to survive in the diaspora, and you wish to sort of make a choice, or obviously you want to return back to the mother continent or whatever country you come from on the continent, that is a personal choice. But the underlying issue is you will need finance. Whatever you wish to do over there, you will need money. Now, if you look at the interest rates, let's say your own beloved Ghana, if you wish to go back there and set up, if you look at the interest rates that the banks charge, if you look at a lot of other issues, the depreciation of the value of the local account, there are huge difficulties, financial and economic difficulties, and plus the cost of doing business. It's serious. So it's not as easy as that you can just up sticks from Europe or the US and then go back to Africa and set up. How are you going to get the funding and the finance?
I'm not suggesting people up sticks, but I'm suggesting that as it is in discussion, we can find ways of changing the situation, because here in the Western world, it is not too difficult if you are in a job to get a loan or, that sort of thing. And if you say that it is not like that in Africa and the interest rates are terrible, then we need to something has to happen. Situations have to change. But how do we do that? We have to help ourselves to be able to survive in our own Africa. This is my point. My point is, even so.
The reality, though, is different, isn't it? Because the African economies, you know, the way they were set up, the historical background of colonialism and how they were exploited, those things are still there. Because, for example, Ghana was a UK colony, or UK was a colony of Ghana was a colony of the UK for a very long time, for over 100 years. And the arrangements they put in place then, even though we are independent, are still there, because we are trading with we are selling all our commodities and our valuable stuff very cheaply to them, rather than trading with our neighbors like Nigeria or South Africa or Ivory Coast, or the international trading mechanism that militates against our interests is still there. You know, so until we can sort of escape or find a way, you know, of cutting those apron strings that keep our economies as suppliers of raw materials and the importers of finished products. This has been going on for centuries. It was going on in the 1900s, in our grandfather's time. It's still going on. We produce so much cocoa in Ghana. How much value do we add to it before we sell? We sell the raw beans. And the cocoa industry is over 100 billion. How much do we get? How much do we get? All of us, how much do we get? About 4 billion, 5 billion? So I don't think this is the time to discuss this issue, because these are long entrenched issues that governments across the continent will need to sit down, cooperate amongst themselves to find a solution. And that's what I said. They've started already, which is good. Setting up the African Continental Trade Body, which is going to facilitate trade and investments among African countries. You know, so yes, we are on the right path, but I don't think this is the time in the era of COVID to be too hopeful that we can just, you know, jump and wish that it happens. It's not going to happen.
So from your view, diasporans are stuck here, really, because they have come here. It's better than Africa. Africa is in the dumps, and situations are bad, and loans are horrible. The interest rate is eye-watering. Therefore, stay where you are, basically.
No, that's not what I'm saying. There are a lot of progress being made in Africa. I mean, there are a lot of people who are doing very, very well in a lot of African countries. The problem is governance. When a country gets bad government, you know, there's a ripple effect. You know, it transcends down to everyone. So if we are able to sort out our governance systems, you know, then maybe there is a chance that we will be able to get there. But as things are, could you imagine there was an issue recently about this businessman who went to Guinea and then took all the bauxite in one part of the nation and bought it for $160 million and then sold it for $5 billion to somebody else? I mean, this is clearly, it's criminal. But we have several African countries and African governments engaging in these sort of things. And if we don't hold our leaders accountable, we can't be blaming other people. You know, so let's get our houses in order first, and then maybe we'll be able to sort things out in the near future.
Okay, so moving along, we had, what is the meaning of MAGA?
Okay, now you're coming to the US, our brothers and sisters in the US now. MAGA is Make America Great Again, which is the Trump, President of the United States, Donald Trump's project, which obviously has come to, well, it's almost at an end, but that's what it means. MAG, Make America Great Again.
Okay, now in view of what happened on the 6th, it was the 6th, wasn't it? It was the 6th of January. That was last week, a week today.
That's right.
At the same time, it demonstrated America as a very racist country.
Definitely.
There were other issues, but for the black man, it demonstrated the stark racism. Now, can you talk about that?
Yeah, you want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So basically, what happened in Washington D.C. By the MAGA fanatics? I call them MAGA fanatics. It was really very, very surprising the way law enforcement is carried out. There is a lot of racism. I mean, the evidence showed, because you remember last summer we had a lot of Black Lives Matter protesters marching in various U.S. cities, and if you see how they were confronted, they were just marching protesters. How they were confronted by the security forces or the police and security agencies. They were beaten up. They were chased with dogs. Some of them were shot and killed and injured. In various cities across America. However, on January the 6th, when Donald Trump called his attack dogs, which were like 99% white, they stormed the Capitol building, and none of them was even challenged. Look at the distraction. And these people were trying to undertake a coup d'etat in the home of democracy. And the evidence became very clear that people have been talking about racism for a very long time, since the civil rights movement. But sometimes they'll tell, oh, it's not true and that. But at this time, the evidence was so clear that American law enforcement is underpinned by racism. Not only racism, unequal treatment of citizens based on the color of their skin. Black and brown people get it very, very in your face. They are beaten up, harshly treated. But when it's white guys congregating and causing trouble, causing damage, attacking politicians, nothing is done. And it's shocking. It's very shocking. And sometimes I do not understand how some people, my colleagues, even my relatives and my friends, will be supporting such a movement. Even some in Africa do support such a movement. And this is a movement which is against their interests. Yet, they don't see it. And I think sometimes we need to educate our brain. We don't all have to be politicians. But the world is still a very, very racist place. To be honest, it is. Even in Europe, in America, go to Brazil. So we always have to be on alert, you know what I mean, and try and start initiatives, education programs to educate our own people about how we deal with these issues.
I find it difficult sometimes if you have had an experience of racism or something, and you are trying to articulate to people who have not had that, because in Africa they see the white man in a totally different way. So that also is a problem. And I think when you talk about people in Africa, following Trump or believing in his views or wishing him to win another term, could it be that they don't understand all of this Make America Great? We can read between the lines, we feel it, we experience it, we see it, but they don't.
Yes, you're right. I mean, the core base of Donald Trump, I mean, when they invaded the Capitol, I mean, look at the material, the implements they brought along, the accoutrements, or the Confederate flags, they brought nooses, they had their, various, all these things were associated with the Jim Crow days. So these people can be he can't have your interests at heart. At least they've demonstrated that you are the person they are coming for. Me and you of African heritage, or those who look black or brown, we are going to be the victim because they don't like us. And left to them alone, we shouldn't be around the place. So it's very sometimes heartbreaking, especially when I saw a march in one of the African countries. I think 2 of them, where about thousands of people were marching in support of this MAGA movement. And I'm thinking, are these guys real? Do they really understand the essence of it? Do they really understand what the agenda is? And it's a shame, to be honest.
They don't understand it. And I think whilst people they see the Western world in a different way, it's because you live in the Western world. That is why you see it in one way. But the ones who do not, they don't live here, they don't know what is going on, they don't understand the nuances of racism, etc. They may even come for shopping and go back and not see what you see.
That is true. Even look at how many, especially in America, even in this country, how many black or brown people get killed on an annual basis by law enforcement. Look at how many, for example, in the UK, look at how many people get sort of stopped and searched in proportion to the normal population. Look at how many people are overrepresented in prisons and jails. And that is why we all must be interested. If anything happens in America regarding racism and discrimination, we must be interested, because there's always a ripple effect back to Europe and other parts of the world. That is why, for somebody like Donald Trump, if you look at his policies, he's not someone, I don't think any person of African origin or heritage should be even, having this sort of idea that he's a Christian, and the guy even doesn't, the guy is, so it surprises me a lot. But thank God, all that project has come to an end, and good riddance, I would say.
Well, we've come to the end of the program. We've had a chat. The question was African diasporan issues, which we have kind of talked about quite a lot of issues. We've talked about us dying disproportionately in the country, as all sorts of things happening to us regarding childbirth. 5 times more Black women die during childbirth than white people. Are we making positive strides? I think we are making positive strides. If you look at how many, generational, there are more professionals, educated Black people who are in the system now. But as to whether it's making a big effect on the Black community, I don't know. We've had a discussion. I still don't know. I don't know. Do you? Can you?
No, I think the jury is out there, to be honest. There's a lot more information that we need to access to be able to make the right judgment. I think the jury is out there.
I think that the more that we are studying, the more that we are getting ahead, the more that we're becoming more professional, we're getting a little bit more experience. I think it is time that people start thinking of going back. I really think that going back is not only going to work for someone. I think going back means wherever you come from in Africa, it doesn't have to be. Nobody should come to Accra if you don't come from there. If you go, everybody should go to their own countries and they should try and rebuild. We need to rebuild because we've learned, we know, but we are kind people and we're good people, and we we think more of our family and our friends and that sort of thing. And we need to get back into goodness. We need to be kind to our fellow man, and it's really difficult here. That is one of the biggest things. We live in neighborhoods where we don't know our neighbors. And these are things which we don't, it's still unfamiliar to us, even though we've moved away and we've come abroad. And with some people it's generational. My parents were here, I'm here, my children are here, 3 generations, so, and it's like that for more people. Some people it's 4 generations. And if you're white and you're Italian and it's 2 generations, you're sucked in and you're part of the system. But once you're black, you're not sucked in. They can see your color and they can see your difference, and you are a threat to them, even if you're standing there quietly minding your own business. And that is dangerous. We have children. We need our children to feel safe. We need to think about these things. This discussion will continue, not necessarily next week, but this discussion will keep continuing until we get to some kind of impasse on how we can sort ourselves out. We need to start sorting ourselves out very quickly. And
that's right. I mean, you what you said is something we need to work towards. Some can be able to, sort of pursue this project of we had a year of return. Was it last year before the COVID? And you saw how highly it was patronized. People coming back to Africa, some even getting citizenship and stuff like that. Yeah, some of you, like you and me, I'm sure I go every year, twice a year, and and a lot of people are able to do that. A lot of people have got projects going. The thing is, I think there's a key ingredient that you have failed to mention, and it's government. African governments should be more willing to be supportive and create the necessary environment. And because, without help and support, for example, I'm going back, I get myself a little maybe motorbike or car to go and settle. When I get to the port, then they tell me a car I bought for $5,000, I should pay them $15,000. Those sort of things. It's debilitating. The governments need to be more more generous, more understand the value of the human resources they are getting back into their continent, their country. Human resources, the most valuable, is more valuable than gold, because here you are competing with everybody in the world. You haven't got the necessary competencies and human resources. And then when somebody who's got the skills, who's got the abilities and the knowledge, want to relocate, you have to create the enabling environment for them to contribute to their quota.
Yep, we'll talk about our hour is up. And so we are going to carry on with this discussion. But you have suddenly become very passionate at the end. So I will need this passion in the beginning. So we will talk again. Thank you all. Thank you, listeners.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We do have a community issue which we have to keep talking about it until something happens. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Stephen, for...
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You.
Okay.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy
Bye
New
bye.
Year.
Be well.